Did you see the girl that only has one arm and she's playing in the Olympics and the Paralympics? Damn. And she won.
All you need is one arm.
I'm actually like,
all you need is
with that. I'm impressed.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Because I wasn't watching it was on and I wasn't watching. I was just listening, and they were like, so and so born with one arm, and she won today, and she's playing in the Paralympics. I turned around like, what in the?
Wow. You know what it needs to be like? You know how when they do the
She needs to be allowed to play.
I was watching the Argentina Lithuania basketball game.
How was it?
Argentina's gonna be the U.S.'s best test, the toughest test.
Is
Argentina?
It's
That's Ginobili, Scola, Nocioni. They old.
France had 6 NBA players on their team. They went down in flames.
He did get a silver medal today though, right? Phelps or did he get a bronze?
He's gonna walk with
But on
there's no way he's
it was on the
He only need one more to be an all-time leader.
He is on relays, the all-time leader.
Oh, he got it today?
He has the most medals, doesn't he?
I thought he was tied.
No, he's tied.
He's tied. He needs one more. He needs one more.
Okay. I don't think he's gonna go down the flames like that.
No.
Besides, he hasn't admitted. I mean, he is just. What is his span?
Something retarded.
We were just talking about.
Yeah.
If you have swimming dreams and you're a 5'5", forget it if you're a male, because there's just no way you can compete with someone who's like 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah.
You're working too hard.
Yeah, you are.
To compete if you're a guy.
The last Olympics, they broke down like his body, like his wingspan, and then like his legs.
He was born to swim.
It was something crazy about his feet.
Yeah, they're like webbed. They're webbed.
Yeah, like
he's a swimmer.
Yeah, he's born to swim.
He was
Born to swim.
Aquaman.
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah.
Have they done any track stuff yet? I haven't seen any.
I haven't seen any track stuff.
No, they haven't.
I haven't seen any track stuff.
It's like week 2 when they start doing it. It's like after the swimming and the basketball kind of phases out.
Because it goes really fast, the track.
Okay.
Like, right now, everybody gotta you gotta do the first heat, and the second heat, and then you competing for a medal. Track, they're like, run.
Because I really been
Right,
trying
we
to.
gotta talk about the Liriano. We gotta talk about that acquisition, what that means. That's another one of those.
You don't know?
No, I know it's not
Well,
good.
I'm not extremely. I told him I'm not impressed with it, but because he's inconsistent. I mean, his best year was like what in 2000? It was like in 06. So he did have surgery. He's never been quite the same after that. But even unless Don Cooper knows something that we don't know. But then again, I'm like, would I rather have him on the mound or Axelrod? I'll take it.
See, my thing is Coop can fix him, but he usually does all that stuff in spring training.
Yeah. Like I said, that's the question. Axelrod or Liriano?
I don't know. I can't just automatically say Liriano.
Really?
He's only at his best against the Sox. And even the last week the Sox dropped.
But you gotta make this is like a blind taste test. You've got to make a choice. You've seen Axelrod, you've seen Liriano.
Either one. It's a toss-up to me, honestly.
Really? You won't even give enough credit to
Liriano
say?
has horrible control.
I'm not saying that, but given what you've seen of Axelrod, really?
Liriano ain't that much better.
Wow, that's...
To me.
I'm telling you said that.
I think we're going to do the best division, and I think the AFC West is going to be the best one.
I cannot wait for Peyton Manning. I love it.
Man, but it ain't just them. Kansas City, they got Jamal Charles back. San Diego, they're real good at all of their skill positions. They're a lot better.
Well, that was a very clustered division last year, so I think it'll be equally just as competitive come this year for them. But I'm sorry, Peyton Manning is that edge for Denver.
Yes.
You could act like you could be one of those.
That's really all they were missing last year was a quarterback that
you could be an ACC.
And they still went 9-7. What, 10-6?
So think about that.
No, 8-8.
So if you go 8-8 with the likes of your favorite fella, your favorite fella, when you have a quality quarterback in that position, that's a different scenario, right? They're going to be a better team.
If you love sports, then you'll love Stats and Stilettos.
The talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON, Stats and Stilettos. Back at you again on another Sunday night. What's going on, everybody? I'm Farouk Basir.
I am Ty Eileen.
And I am Maya Gavin.
And tonight we have a jam-packed show for you guys. Coming up here in a few minutes, we're going to have Kip Lewis from Comcast Sportsnet to give us our first Bears training camp, little wrap-up of the season here. As training camp begun earlier last week. Coming up at 10 o'clock, we'll have Russell Baxter on, and he's from ProFootballGuru.com, and he will be talking AFC West, helping us break that down at 10:04. We're going to do headlines at 9:20. We're going to have our sports chick tip of the week at 10:40. So a lot going on tonight. You can listen online at WVON.com. Go on there and click on the iHeartRadio icon. Download the app on your smartphones and take WVON with you wherever you go. You can follow the show on Twitter at
Stilettos.
See, I wasn't even going to act a fool.
No, that's why I didn't do it, because I wasn't going to give you the satisfaction of it.
Man. You can also like the Facebook page as well. The phone number here at the station, 773-591-1690. If you feel like commenting on anything we'll be talking about tonight, that's 773-591-1690. And we're going to get straight to it. Joining us now is Kip Lewis on the line here to talk some Chicago Bears football, training camp style with us. How you doing tonight, Kip?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. The guys had a big turnout down there last night in Bourbonnais. 12,000 people came out to see no one get hit. How was that?
No, they hit last night. They had the first last night was the first night of pads, and it was actually a real good practice. I think Brandon Marshall put on a show for everyone and sort of showed why I think he's one of the top receivers in the league. And some of the young guys too. Evan Rodriguez, the tight end, had a real nice practice as well.
So, Kip, a question everyone's wondering is obviously Cutler's back. They've got Marshall in. How does it seem like they're gelling? It seems like there's a connection that is expected to be a carryover from when they were in Denver together.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things I think they have a history together. So, sometimes when you're a quarterback and receiver, in fact, we saw it a little bit last night that there were plays when really Brandon was covered. And Jay will kind of throw the ball to an area, and Brandon can adjust to it. He can make some plays that not every wide receiver can make. And it's kind of funny. I mean, if you know the two of them, they're very different personalities, but they have a great relationship off the field. And I think that was one of the reasons that Brandon wanted to come here, maybe get out of his situation in Miami. But it seems to work for both of them. They spend a lot of time together. Off the field, and Brandon sort of jokes sometimes that, Jay likes to act like his dad and tell him, what he's supposed to do, what he's not supposed to do. I know they have rooms right next to each other at training camp, and Brandon told me that, they spend some time just playing board games at night and talking. So, a lot of relationship has been built really off the field, and I think maybe even going back to Denver and has sort of carried over onto the field.
So Forte is obviously got the extended contract. He's back. How did he seem in camp? Did he seem like he kind of jumped right into it, that there was kind of nothing going on with the contract dispute for a while?
Well, I think the tough thing for Matt right now, and actually I talked to him for a minute today. I'm going to talk to him Thursday again, so I haven't had any one-on-one time with him. But, he obviously missed all the off-season stuff. When they put in Mike Tice as a new offensive coordinator, they changed the offense, so he really, right now, it's just, he's had to really get in the playbook. They've got some new terminology, things like that. It's really a completely different offense from what they had, the last couple of years with Mike Martz. So, but, in practice, you can't tell. I mean, he certainly hasn't made mistakes, and he looks like the same Matt Forte. And I think just from a psychological standpoint, he's happy to just have that contract situation out of the way because, that was something they talked about for, it was going on for over a year, really, before they finally got it done.
Right.
Okay, I have a good and a bad I would like addressed. My bad is I am seeing that they are, again, looking at Devin Hester to possibly be a receiver. Can you please, give some insight? What has he been doing at camp that they're, again, looking at this as an option?
Devin can play receiver. People are if you watch practice, Devin is a great route runner. Devin can do some things that really no one else on their team can do because one of the things that makes him a great return guy is his great feet and his ability to move in the open field. Mm-hmm. But Devin's worked really hard the last couple of years. A great example, this will be my fourth season covering the Bears. My first season here was really when they tried to make that transition for him to be a wide receiver. He is 100 times better than a couple of years ago. I mean, he can run great routes. I think what Devin has to do is to carry all the stuff that he does in practice, the route running. He made a great catch today in practice. He has to be able to translate that and carry over into the games. And his role is not going to be, I think 2 years ago, they were talking about Devin was going to be a number one receiver in the league. He's not going to be that guy, but he is a guy that can make plays, and he's a weapon. I mean, there are not a lot of guys that have the physical ability that Devin has.
Okay. And for the good, can you let us...
Wait, that's kind of good, too.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I just get a little tired of seeing them rely on Devin Hester, and then he gets in the game, and they're like, didn't really work out the way we thought it was going to work out.
No,
because it's just not what he naturally does.
Well, you're not going to see that this year, though. Devin, I think, will be a guy that will probably get 30-some catches. Who knows what Brandon Marshall will get. But then another guy that's going to take away a lot of those catches, Alshon Jeffrey, the rookie from South Carolina, is going to be a great receiver at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Earl Bennett's going to be there. So those are going to be the guys that get a lot of the catches. I mean, Devin's not going to get 60, 70 catches, but there's certainly going to be some plays put in for him.
Talking with Kip Lewis from Comcast Sportsnet Chicago. The Bears do play defense, so I'd like to talk about that a little bit too. Urlacher, with the whole knee thing going on last year, how's he looking out there so far?
He looks good so far. I mean, they haven't done a lot, but I mean, he's practiced both of the last 2 days when they've had the pads on. He has been wearing a brace on his left knee. That's the knee that he hurt in the last game of the season. But right now, I mean, you can't tell that he took a little bit of time off during the off season. He took a couple practice days and things like that. Didn't participate in everything. But right now you can't tell that he had any kind of injury in the off season.
And the defensive backfield, particularly those safeties, Major Wright and who else they got? Who's going to be starting on the opposite side of him out there? Who do they have on the defense listed as number one right now?
Well, Chris Coney started last year as a rookie. He was a draft pick out of Cal. Chris, I think he'll start again. I think Major has to show that he's going to be consistent. They really liked Major when he first got here. I mean, he made a lot of good plays in the first training camp that he was here. But I know they also liked the guy Brandon Harden, who they drafted this year. And he's a big, tall guy. He's rangy. He's 6'3", 217. He's actually a guy at that size actually played corner in college. So that says a lot about a guy that he made 6'3" corners in the league. So he's a guy that they like his range. They like his ability. He was also a real physical player in college. So he may have a shot to get in there and really, maybe even battle at some point for a starting spot or at least get some playing time. And there's not a lot of depth at the safety position still, but I think those are probably going to be the three guys. Obviously, Craig Stelz is still around, so you'll see a little bit of him. But I think those three guys are going to be the main guys at the safety position.
Now, I am a sucker for a good story, and I don't think there's a better story out there right now than Brian Price. I'm rooting for him. Can you how does he look on the field right now? Like, how has he been looking? I know he's just kind of got there, but
yeah, he hasn't done anything yet. He's not allowed to practice yet. It's physical. He can't put on pads. I think the first day he can practice in full pads, if they decide to do that, is Wednesday, because with a new collective bargaining agreement, he has to have 3 days before he can actually participate fully. He was out there in shorts and a helmet last night and today, so he did some of the individual work and things like that. But yeah, we had a chance to talk to him last night briefly. He's the guy that I actually played with Khalil Bell, in college at UCLA for a couple of years, and I asked Khalil about him, and Khalil said that he's a great guy. He said he's a great teammate and a really good player. It may be it may be outside of maybe Brandon Marshall. It could end up being a huge pickup for them because he's a defensive tackle. It's an area that the Bears are probably pretty thin at. And Price was a guy that, was, I think, the 35th pick in the draft. So, he was just out of the first round. So, and that was just 2 years ago. So he has some talent. People obviously liked him. And if people don't know his story, he had a little problems. He came from Tampa Bay, had a little problem in the off season. His sister passed away. He got in a fight with a teammate in Tampa, and I think maybe Tampa decided that maybe just a different scenery and a change of pace would help him. And Price said he was happy to be here, and he said he feels like all that stuff has sort of been put behind him, and he can start to focus on football again.
And has adopted his nephews from his sister that she died in I think it was a car accident. So now he's taking care of his nephews and has their faces tattooed on his hands so that when in the middle of a game, it's his motivation. I'm sorry, I was a sucker for it when I saw it on the news. I was like, oh, that's great.
No, but
we need a feel-good story on the Bears when, they bring us Brandon Marshall. And
I knew that was coming, Kip. I knew it was coming.
Here's a question. This seems to be the first season in a while that the Bears seem to have a solid plan when you talk about backup quarterbacks. Now, obviously, everyone wants Cutler to stay healthy, but this seems like they have, obviously Campbell is a decent backup. Kind of how is that going to play out in camp? Are we going to see much of them? Are they going to get some touches, some reps, to kind of see how Campbell's going to fit into this?
Yeah, no, he gets a lot of reps. I mean, he's obviously not going to play unless Jay gets hurt. But, the one thing you notice about him is that he could be a starter in this league. There are obviously only so many positions, for guys to start. But, we watch him throw the ball. Obviously everyone knows what happened with the Bears last season, when Jay got hurt. But that won't be the problem this year if Jason, has to play, even if it's a game or a half or something like that. He is, he's a physical presence. He can throw the ball. He's been in the league a long time, so he knows, how to get. He's had a lot of different offenses too, which I think has helped him. But he's not what the Bears had as a backup last year. I can promise you that.
Absolutely. What about the offensive line? It doesn't seem like in the offseason a lot was really done to improve that, though I have to say with Tice moving to be leading the actual offense, that's probably a plus because he's going to work to the offensive lines, their strengths. But how do you think this is going to play out, as they get ready for the season?
Well, the big thing, everyone criticized the offensive line, and, I know I've been one of the people that actually think the offensive line is going to be pretty good. Mike Martz's system, wherever he's been, the reason offensive lines struggle, even when he was in St. Louis and they won the Super Bowl, they've struggled because that offense, the quarterback takes deeper drops. Mm-hmm. He has to hold the ball longer. It puts a lot more pressure on the offensive line. This offensive system isn't going to do that. And by the way, the Bears only gave up maybe, I think while Cutler was playing, like 2.3 sacks a game, which was kind of in the middle of the pack in the NFL. So as much criticism they took, they actually did a pretty good job in the Mike Martz system. But, the difference now is the ball is going to get out of Jay's hands faster. It's going to make it easier on the offensive line. They're not going to have to block as long. And also the big thing, I think, I talked to Roberto Garza about this today, is that the last couple of years there's been a lot of shuffling on the offensive line, trying to figure out who fits where, whether it's guard, tackle, left side, right side, and then just trying to sort through who your best players are. But this year, at least, through the off season and the first part of camp, they know who their four guys are. The only position I think is really going to be a battle is at the left tackle position between Jamarcus Webb, who started last year, and Chris Williams, who obviously was a first-round pick, played at guard last year. They decided to move him back to tackle. And those guys may end up actually alternating at different points as a left tackle. But right now, the big thing for those guys is to always work together, not have a lot of different bodies in there so they're all on the same page. I think the offensive line will surprise people this year.
It stands to reason. I agree with you. Tice is going to work to their strengths opposed to any weaknesses that they have. And obviously with acquisitions of Marshall at wide receiver, the Bears are going to have the ability to spread the field, and they do have a good running game. So you're right. I don't think they're going to be putting her as much to rest to hold because you're right. Tice is not going to have Cutler doing 7-step drops. So it's good to hear that at least, though that didn't seem like they made a lot of investment in the offseason, that at least what they have is going to be more than sufficient going into the season.
Yeah, and one of the things they'll do, like when you have a guy like Brandon Marshall, one of the things I think they'll be much better at, and I don't know where they ranked last year, but in third down offense, when you have a guy like Brandon Marshall who is almost impossible to stop on a 5-yard route, if they can stay out of third and long situations as well, that helps your offensive line because last year they also ended up in a lot of, third and 6, third and 7, third and 8. So people know you're going to throw the ball. They're going to tee off on your offensive linemen and rush. That puts a lot of added pressure. I think this year, obviously we don't know until they get into the season, but just with the personnel they have, I think they'll be able to avoid a lot of those situations, which will help the offense as well.
So on Friday, George McCaskey came out and said that when Phil Emery took the position as general manager, we were all confused, like, oh, well, he doesn't have any say over the coach because they said Lovie Smith is our coach. However, on Friday, he said in 2013, however, he will have the decision whether or not he wants to keep Lovie. So,
well, I think what they initially said, I think what he meant initially was that the first year he wanted to make sure that they worked together, and he didn't want to have a guy come in and say, we're going to make a coaching change just to make a coaching change. I think I always took it that he didn't mean for the long haul, because most general managers would never take the job if you don't have that power. But I think he wanted to make sure that the two of them spent a year together, got to know each other, see how well they work together, and let him sort of evaluate not only Lovie, but his entire staff. And I think that was a fair thing to do. I mean, I'm always surprised that Lovie's gotten so much criticism here, because I felt like a couple of years ago when they went to the NFC Championship game, that was not a very talented team at all. I mean, they had nowhere near the talent that they have this year, in fact. And so I thought just to keep the team together and get them to that point, he did a great job. So, in my opinion, I mean, Lovie deserves to be here.
Even though McCaskey followed it up saying, the hope is that we win a Super Bowl and there won't be a change. And he's implying, he said he wasn't implying that if he didn't win the Super Bowl this year that he was out. But it just was interesting timing to say that after you say, oh, well, the new general manager has a say-so next year.
Yeah, no, I don't believe that. I think if they have a good year, and you never know, everyone talks about it, but you don't even know what's going to happen when the season starts. I mean, last year, you got to remember, this team was going to be 11 or 12-win team until Jay and Matt Forte got hurt. I mean, there was no question that team was going to be a playoff team. So you don't know what's going to happen if you have serious injuries. I mean, if you lose 3 of your offensive linemen over the course of a season, and, last year they lost 2, Chris Williams and Gabe Karimi, then you lose your quarterback and your running back. It's tough for any team. So, everyone has to be evaluated at the end of the season because there's so many different things that factor in over the course of a year.
All right, Kip, we appreciate you joining us tonight, man. Thanks a lot. We look forward to frequent Bears previews here coming up here over the next few weeks, bro.
Okay, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
All right, that's Kip Lewis from Comcast Sportsnet Chicago down there.
I would have liked to have seen a suspension of some kind of the team. Is that the right thing to say? Maybe not. Is that an emotional answer? Probably. But that essentially has been ruled out. So I think it's probably going to be, a substantial amount of scholarships. I mean, substantial. And no bowl game appearances.
Penn State football will be banned from bowl games and any other postseason play for 4 years. Penn State's football team will have its initial scholarships reduced from 25 to 15 per year for a period of 4 years. In order to minimize the negative impact on student athletes, the NCAA will allow any entering or returning football student athletes to transfer and immediately compete at the transfer university, provided he is otherwise eligible.
Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos. That was a recap of the sanctions that came down from the NCAA on Penn State. I kind of had it on the head last Sunday. I'd pretty much predicted. I'm not really sure how I predicted it because I didn't really have anything to go off of. One thing that I don't necessarily agree with 100% is taking away all of their wins since 1998, because that's punishing people that went to practice, played games, played their hearts out, and won these games. And so now their seasons have been completely erased. I am, struggling with that a little bit, but the rest of it, I don't really have any problems with at all.
We talked about this, obviously, in the pre-show. It gets down to, unfortunately, the actions of a few who are going to pay the price. There's going to be jail time probably passed down when you talk about, Spanier and Curley. There's going to be something that's going to happen with that, and that's what should happen. But now you're starting to penalize people that were not part of it, didn't support it. Even when taking the postseason play, you're still putting effect on something of people that didn't have anything to do with it. Now, if you want to cut back on scholarships, okay, fine. I'm fine with the fine. I still don't hear them talking about the NCAA, that is, about educating people about how to be aware of this, what's the proper actions to happen. Because when you're a state employee, you're still a mandated reporter. So are you rolling out a program for all the schools in the NCAA to understand what they need to do so that this never happens again? I haven't heard that component roll out, and I think it's extremely important. So, I'm sure someone would say, who cares? It doesn't matter. They should be punished. But you're punishing people that were not part of the action. It's kind of like what Pete Carroll did at USC. USC got punished, and Pete Carroll got to leave, and now he's coaching in the NFL. What happened with Tressel at Ohio State? He gets to leave. The school gets punished. So the school is being punished, but the people who actually did the action are now removed from it.
Let's do headlines.
Headlines. Headlines.
Start. Where are you going to start? Where are we starting? We're starting with the Olympics?
We can start with the Olympics. That's
No. There's so much to cover in the Olympics.
Okay,
I feel like if we start with the Olympics, the whole thing's going to be about it.
Well, no.
Let's start with the Cubs.
The Cubs. Okay,
I
we'll
know,
start
because you guys never want to talk about.
Is there
the Cubs.
something you want to talk about?
There is stuff to talk about the Cubs.
Because they won.
No, not even that, because they're pretty much done for the season. But
they were done when it started. What you talking about?
Ryan Dempster is kind of holding them up right now.
But he, this started last week about the whole Dodger situation. That's where he was looking to be traded to.
Because they had people reporting that he was going to the Braves, when all that first started. But now he's trying to engineer, he's a 10-5 guy. So he's trying to engineer where he goes to the Dodgers. But now the Cubs are trying to throw Soriano in with this. And I
like that. Oh, yes.
But I don't think the Dodgers do.
No one's going to buy him.
Magic was like, what? You know what it takes? What?
No,
Magic ain't like that. Magic's not having to pay Alfonso Soriano.
Any deal the Cubs can manufacture that puts Soriano in it and moves him off of their books is, at this point, it just seems like Epstein is clearing books to free up money.
No doubt.
So if they can package him up and put a bow and ship him out with anybody.
Magic ain't having it. He's not having it.
Magic is, he's an astute
I'm not
businessman.
going to pay Alfonso Soriano.
He don't even sound that good.
What is that voice?
That's not him.
That's Magic. After he gets a stiletto to the midsection.
Oh, don't ever do that again.
And then obviously Garza was hot on trade bait, but now with his injured elbow, that's tricep. Is that what it is?
This is on forearm area. All of that.
That unfortunately takes him out the mix. So he won't be. But that might be a good thing, maybe.
Well, let's see. They're trying to deal with the Sox. Kenny Williams likes damaged goods. We'll talk about the Sox later, though. But
you have something to say about damaged goods? I'm just asking.
No, Matt Garza.
Because it comes up. No, I'm just saying, because in other sports, it's okay. But right now, it's not okay.
Well, not if you're looking to trade somebody. It's not going to work. I'm going to take something broken like that, obviously.
Yeah. But, the Cubs, they're trying to move people. They had a win today. Hooray. Anthony Rizzo, walk-off 2-run homer.
Didn't he have, some kind of goofy era where, he was, running over to second base and he just, I don't know, whatever. I like Rizzo, though. I do.
Okay.
Good young player.
All right, well, elsewhere in headlines, let's do some Olympic stuff because, the Olympic team, the men's basketball team, had to play early today.
Yes, they did. I watched it.
And I got up and watched it, too. And,
did you really?
Yes, I did.
But we do a sports show. We are obligated to watch this
Equal
stuff.
opportunity.
All you got to do is, just read the recap of the game.
And NBC is so bogus because I was saying this yesterday. I didn't have this NBC network thing that they have, but they put the USA game on there and forced me to call my cable provider to upgrade my service so I can watch the game.
Oh, you got the bare bones service?
No, because I automatically had it.
They didn't automatically give me that.
I just had to figure out which channel it was.
Wait a minute. Is there still even a basic package on cable?
I didn't have that. All I know is I didn't have NBC, the NBC Sports Network thing, and I had to order.
You got the basic one. Yeah.
Whatever I had, I got that now, and I had to get up and watch it. And I was quite upset with myself that I did that. I'm like, I lost 2 hours of sleep for this.
Because it wasn't exciting.
It wasn't competitive at all. But
a game.
I'm looking forward to the Argentina game because I did watch on Lithuania and Argentina this afternoon. Argentina, when they do play the United States, I think that's going to be somewhat of a competitive game. They have some older veteran players, but they have some all-star players, NBA all-stars on their team. So I think that's going to be some good competition. That'll be the first real measuring stick we'll have for the U.S. team, I think. personally.
For you, since you're comparing the dream team to this team?
I don't even want to get back into this because the competition is better now. It's just better.
Right.
They're playing better players now.
All right.
So
we're going to leave it alone.
But not only with that, but I think the biggest story out there so far has been Michael Phelps.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the real story.
Of course, I
don't really think it's that big of a story. I think people made it bigger, but he did not train for the event.
The 400 meter, right?
Yeah, he did not train for that. And then at the last minute kind of decided, all right, I'm Michael Phelps. This is my last Olympics. I'm going to go ahead and compete. I'm not shocked he lost.
I'm not either because his American rival, is it Lockie? Is that his name? Ryan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lockie.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty good. So, I mean, now it's not just Phelps beating other Olympians. He has a competitor within the American team that, everyone says that he trained hard for this.
But 650 pounds higher. He was flipping.
They said
up and
that he
down.
really trained. Yeah. I think he's a good poster boy for U.S. swimming. I do.
Who?
Does he light up like Phelps though?
Ryan, I don't know. Can you
if light up?
What do you mean?
Oh, you're on something completely.
That's what. Hey, I'm not.
I thought you were about to. I thought never
he
mind.
Michael Phelps lights up.
I'm not even gonna touch that right now.
I know exactly where I thought. I'm like, are you trying to make an inference back to?
No, I'm talking about lighting up. Michael Phelps likes to,
light up the pool. Is that what you're saying?
That's what they call it now.
No, you're the one who said lights up, so we're like, well, what are you talking about?
Michael Phelps smokes weed.
Yeah.
So does this other guy smoke weed?
Okay, we knew. Just go
I
ahead
knew.
and
I
say
knew
it.
that.
Yeah.
I was trying to move on.
But here's the thing:
actually
was you get
came
mad
full circle here
when we talk about Brandon Marshall? Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos with me, Maya, Ty, and Farouk. We are moving into the second half of the show where we will have on with us Russo Baxter. If you can follow him on Twitter at BaxFootballGuru. He's also at ProFootballGuru.com and a contributor to NFL.com. Russell, welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, good evening, trio of analysts here. How are you?
I don't know if we're analysts, but we do a whole lot of talking. I do get to follow you.
I think in Maya, in all ways, we're all analysts. Okay, just remember when it comes to things, everybody is right, but not everybody is accurate.
Now there you go. I like that. I'm going to have to borrow that one from you, Russell. Obviously, training camps have started. Week by week, we have been talking about the AFC so far in each division. So this week, we are talking about the AFC West. So I think it's only appropriate to probably start out with the team that's probably getting the most conversation, the Denver Broncos, due to Peyton Manning. Kind of what's going on with the Broncos?
Well, it's a fascinating division. You had three teams that finished 8-8, and the team that won it the year before was 7-9. The thing that was also so fascinating about it last year was the fact that every team in head-to-head in the division was 3-3. So you couldn't get any tighter than it was. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, here comes Denver, which won the division at 8-8, and they were the coldest team at the end of the year by losing their last three games. But of course, they made a slight change at quarterback. With Tim Tebow, whose exploits last year were well documented. Between him and the Denver defense, it was a miraculous run. They got them there, and they won a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But now here comes Peyton Manning, one of six quarterbacks to throw 300 touchdown passes, and as soon as he throws his next one, it'll be number 400. That puts him on a short list of three guys who have ever thrown 400 touchdown passes. Some guy named Marino and Brett Favre. Sounds familiar?
Tad bit.
Favre.
Yeah. But bottom line is, just look at this division overall since the start of last year, okay? I mean, the Raiders wound up picking up Carson Palmer in the middle of the year last year. They finished 8-8. They were actually a 7-4 team and unfortunately lost 4 of their last 5 games. So if at this time last year, there was Kyle Orton and Tim Tebow in Denver. There was, the Raiders quarterback situation was Campbell, Jason Campbell. Mm-hmm. And Philip Rivers is still the incumbent there. And, of course, Matt Castle in Kansas City wound up getting hurt last year. So really topsy-turvy year in the division. The team that finished first in 2010 finished last. And the team that finished last in 2010 finished first.
Okay, I don't want to overstate what I believe that Peyton Manning will mean for Denver. I figure if Tim Tebow can take Denver as far as he did with his, some people feel, limited arsenal of talent, obviously there's an upgrade with Peyton Manning. How is he kind of gelling with, is he enough to say that Denver could be a clear-cut winner in that division? And you're right, it was a very cluttered division at the top. Do you think Peyton Manning can be the difference maker that can have Denver make it a runaway for them?
I think it kind of makes them the favorite. But you got to remember something. As much as we like to talk about this being a quarterback-driven league, you can throw for all the yards you want, and you can score all the points that you want. There were 3 teams in the league last year, gang, that scored at least 500 points. That had never happened in the history of the NFL. None of them won the Super Bowl.
This would be true.
A bunch of quarterbacks threw for 5,000 yards last year. None of them won the Super Bowl. So what it comes down to is a little balance, a little defense, and the team that plays the best defense in that division, along with steady quarterbacking and consistency. And Denver, I think, has the potential, and I think as much as Peyton Manning's presence there is important, Jack Del Rio coming in and being the defensive coordinator, I think, is a big addition when you have guys like Von Miller and Elvis Dumerville who, combined for, basically more than half the sacks that Denver had last year. But Denver still needs to be a little better against the run, a little inconsistent with their defense. I saw New England play the Broncos twice last year and really take them apart defensively. So as much as we want to talk about the quarterbacks, and Peyton Manning would be the first to tell you, it's not a one-man game. You've got to play some semblance in defense. And if you don't think Denver is necessarily the favorite, I think the other team really to keep an eye on is Kansas City.
Yes, you're very right there.
Romeo Crennel, who's going to be the head coach and the defensive coordinator last year. Remember what they did at the end of the year last year? They shackled the Packers in Kansas City. The only regular season game that Green Bay lost all year.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Russell. That was the question I was going to ask you. I feel like Kansas City is the favorite because they fit everything you just said about being balanced. We're having Jamal Charles coming back this year. They'll have the best running game in the division. If Castle can be somewhat like he was from 2 years ago with Dwayne Bowe as well, they'll have a pretty good team, I think, and they have the best defense, the best all-around defense in the league to me as well.
Well, this answers the question you threw out there about a clear-cut favorite, and that's why I think Denver is, I'm one of those people who really believes that the favorite is the team that won the division every year. And then in a couple of weeks, that can be really dispelled. But going in, to me, the team to beat in the National Football League year is the New York Giants. I'm a big champions until the throne guy. So I don't think the Denver Broncos did anything to hurt themselves this offseason. The team that to me is very intriguing in that division is San Diego, and maybe not for the reasons that you think. I cannot remember under the A.J. Smith regime and, be it Marty Schottenheimer or Norv Turner, of how busy this team was during free agency. You just don't see the Chargers go out and sign the amount of people that they did in the offseason. All the wide receivers and kick returners and, you name it, they really did quite the job all overhauling their roster.
Farouk talks about, obviously, I agree that you look at some of the components that Kansas City has and it makes sense. But it's like the balance of, it seems to me, throughout the NFL, there has to now be a balance of, yes, you have to have a good running game, but you also have to have a good wide receiving core. I think, to me, I'm not seeing that Kansas City is as strong as they should be in that area. I mean, yes, the run is established for them. We all know that running backs can go down in a moment, and I don't see they have the depth at that position that would keep them afloat. So that's why, once again, I'm going to shuffle back and say, not that Kansas City can't be a favorite, but I don't think all around, when you look at all the things that need to be in place to be successful, I think there's some tools they still need in place in order to be successful overall. I just don't think they have, the ability to spread the field as they currently are.
Well, listen, I'd be hard-pressed to find a team that has everything in the league.
True.
But let me remind you of a couple facts. First off, Romeo Crennel, when his days with the Patriots, knows a little something about defense and Peyton Manning. He had quite success. Now, it's different players, I understand as well, but he did quite the number on Aaron Rodgers and company last year. And don't get me wrong, I'm not picking Kansas City to win the division. I don't make any picks until about the third or fourth week in August. I like to see guys actually on the field preseason-wise and all that. But there's also a very well-known fact that no NFL quarterback has ever thrown a touchdown from the sidelines. And if Denver's defense doesn't handle the Kansas City running game, it's hard for Peyton Manning to get on the field, much like, you play ball control against some of these better quarterbacks, that frustration level, there it is. The difference between throwing when you want to and throwing when you have to when behind is two totally different things. But, let's put it this way. To me, Denver is an interesting club because I want to really see what they do offensively. This was a team that led the league in rushing last year, and, part of that was Tim Tebow, but part of that was also Willis McGahee.
True.
And listen, John Elway can tell you something, and he was the guy who recruited Peyton Manning. John Elway can tell you something about trying to throw the ball all over the place and win a Super Bowl. He carried the Broncos to the 3 Super Bowls almost on his own with the receiving core that they had, Vance Johnson, Mark Jackson, and so on. And they didn't get a lot of support from the running game. He was there. Then suddenly, his last 2 years in the league, here comes Terrell Davis. They become a balanced football team. Their defense plays a little better. During the second Super Bowl run, the defense was average. During the first Super Bowl run, and John Elway winds up winning a pair of Super Bowls, with the big assists from the running game. So, with Peyton Manning, and let's throw out one more thing about Peyton Manning. We're not 100% sure what we're going to see from Peyton Manning.
True.
By the time he takes the field, early week of September, it would have been basically 20 months since he's thrown a football in a game that counted.
And I will say this too, considering that they are banking a lot on him being healthy and being able to produce, because at this point they don't really have any depth at backup. I mean, not that I'm saying Caleb Haney doesn't maybe have ability, but being unfortunately in Chicago, we had to have the Caleb Haney experience that everyone thought might work and it didn't. It doesn't seem like they really have a backup plan in the event that Peyton Manning actually goes down. It seems like that's something that I think is a little scary, that they haven't got a better insurance policy at backup.
Well, I think.
Well,
go ahead.
Very familiar to his days in Indianapolis. Other than, it was funny, Peyton Manning played or started 208 regular season games from the day he was a rookie, and then he started none last year. So it was absolutely hit or miss, and it almost became a trivia question who the backup quarterback was in Indianapolis. Was it Jim Sorgi? Was it Curtis Painter? So almost similar. Now, of course, you mentioned Caleb Haney, who obviously had had a rough time in Chicago last year, but also played respectable football.
Yes.
In the NFC Championship game. But he's an undrafted free agent from a couple of years ago.
True.
They drafted Brock Osweiler as a developmental prospect, obviously.
Yes.
Because obviously Peyton Manning's not going to play 10 more years, so that would be astounding. I shouldn't say never. In this day and age, you shouldn't be surprised by anything, but that would be quite the feat if he played 10 more years.
Well, I was going to say, Peyton Manning has found himself on a team that takes a licking and keeps on ticking. I mean, Willis McGahee, Champ Bailey has been playing for, I don't even know how many seasons at this point. So I feel like he's found, his brethren of people who just will not go down. They just will not.
Well, it's fascinating because, I think the thing I mentioned to you about John Elway and that calling card, and if you remember John Elway's press conference with Peyton Manning, he stated that he was going to make Peyton Manning the best quarterback that he could be. And there's a lot of difference between, being a great passer and being a great quarterback. I believe Peyton Manning is a great quarterback. And I think John Elway is thinking along the lines that I want to bring him to even new heights. Fairly or unfairly, we judge quarterbacks by wins or losses, and we judge them by, Super Bowl titles. And a lot of people, and you know this, a lot of people love to bring up Peyton Manning's playoff record, which is below 500.
Mm-hmm.
But the last I checked, this isn't tennis or handball. He doesn't go out in the field by himself. So I prefer to say that the Colts were 9-10, not necessarily Peyton Manning 9-10.
All right, Russell. We haven't touched on the Raiders. It seems like I think that having Carson Palmer for a whole season can't do anything but help them and improve them from last year's record. And also a healthy Darren McFadden, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have the potential to have a pretty dynamic offense out there in Oakland.
Well, the problem with Darren McFadden has been health. I mean, he hasn't played a 16-game season in the 4 years he's been in the league. He only played seven games last year. When he's on the field, he's not on the field long, and I don't mean that injury-wise. I'm just talking about how explosive he is. You give him the ball, and there's 65 yards and a touchdown. So he's not on the field long because he's such a dynamic runner. But they do need him. And they also need that defense to step up last year. They wound up giving up 31 touchdown passes last year, which was second most in the league, next to Minnesota. So now they bring in Dennis Allen, the latest new head coach for the Raiders, who seemingly go through a new head coach every year. It's hard to believe they haven't been in a playoff game since they lost the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers, which is basically 10 years ago. But yeah, they are intriguing. And with Carson Palmer with a normal off season, and if he can cut down on those interceptions, and unfortunately for Carson, be it last year or his last year with the Bengals, it seemed like every time he threw a pick, it was getting run back for 6.
It seemed like a lot of those. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Russell.
No. It's, be it his fault or not fault, or someone else's fault. That ball seemed like it was going the other way, and it's one thing to turn over the ball, and then it's another thing where it directly leads to a touchdown for the opposition. Again, remember, this was a 7-14 last year, and the wheels kind of came apart at the end. And they still had a chance to win the division if they could beat San Diego at home last year, and they failed to do it.
I think a lot of those interceptions, though, was a product of Carson being thrown into the fire. Didn't he start like the week after he was signed or something like that? They had him out there. So
he didn't see what happened was Kyle Bowler. I think if I remember right, Kyle Bowler threw 3 interceptions and had 1 return for a touchdown against the Chiefs. So they put in Carson Palmer, and he had 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
But let's also go back to his final year with the Bengals. He threw a lot of interceptions as well. So I'm not necessarily just focusing on his days with the Raiders. I'm also saying, in 2009 when the Bengals won the division, do you hear what I said? People forget. The Bengals won the division in 2009 with Carson Palmer. They were a different team. They were a lot of Cedric Benson. And to me, Carson Palmer, I'm not criticizing him. I think Carson Palmer is not the quarterback we saw when he originally came in the league, and there's a lot of it has to do with his injuries. He suffered that severe knee injury. He's had, elbow problems and so on. So, he's lost big chunks of time because of some major injuries. It's amazing what those things will do to change a person. Again, when, you suffered the knee injury that he did in the Steelers playoff game in 2005, and remember a couple of years ago, he barely played. So this is a different quarterback than the guy who could really sling it. Not to saying he still can't throw the football, but he's a different quarterback than when he entered the league almost a decade ago.
I would stand to reason to say that they obviously feel that he can get the job done because the backup for him is Matt Leinart and Terrell Pryor. So once again, it seems like you're seeing this is an investment they've made, and they expect that he can be the quarterback to get it done. My question would be, obviously, the Raiders they allowed Michael Bush to leave, and he came to the Bears. How do you think the running game is going to go with Darren McFadden? Not that obviously he has the ability, but is that enough? Do you feel that they have depth behind him to keep going?
Well, they're going to have to. Michael Bush played a big role last year, obviously, and it's a big reason he's now in Chicago because of his performance last year. But the key with McFadden is health. There's no doubt about it. I'm not a never say. Saying never is crazy because you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
What's a better example of? Well, let me think. Reggie Bush is nothing but a guy who catches passes and returns punts. So what does he do? He goes to Miami last year and becomes a 1,000-yard runner and an inside the tackles runner. I mean, he had as big a surprising performance as anyone. So, guys can change. And, Fred Taylor early in his career with the Jaguars had some problems staying healthy. And then later, I'll tell you the best example because we're actually going to see him in the Hall of Fame next Saturday. When Curtis Martin was a young player at the University of Pittsburgh, he had problems staying healthy. It's one of the reasons he slipped to the 3rd round of the draft. And he wound up the 4th leading rusher in the history of the NFL. So never say never. Again, McFadden gives them a dimension that a lot of teams don't have. But keeping him on the field has been a little bit of an issue. But if the Raiders can do that, listen, if Jamal Charles can wear down your defense, Darren McFadden can do the same thing.
All right, you can follow him at Bax, B-A-X Football Guru on Twitter. Russell S. Baxter, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Russell.
You're welcome. I had a great time. Hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Right.
Bye-bye.
All right, more stats and stilettos after this. You don't got to kiss. Why you got to kiss a bunch of writers' butts to get in the Hall of Fame when you had this great career on the field?
Okay. I find this hilarious on a sports show because if you, after a game, had to interview players and the player was always a butthead, would you still talk about him on the air or write about him in your column?
My job is to cover sports. My job is not to kiss somebody's ass or have my ass kissed.
Well, okay then.
All right. Tell him why you're mad, son. Welcome back to Stats and Stilettos, another colorful disagreement we had here on the air with Farouk, who likes colorful language. Farouk, he likes to push the envelope here on Stats and Stilettos.
Yes, he
does.
It's
late. Nobody's listening. It's late.
We know there's people listening. Just nobody that cares about your colorful language might not be listening.
Right.
So I told my co-host in our pre-meeting that I had a secret question I wanted to ask them. I didn't want them to think about it because I wanted to get their first reaction. So I'm going to ask them now on the air.
Okay.
A friend of mine put it out there on his Facebook page over the weekend. And I feel like I need to, because I asked Mr. No Hashtag Needed and he had all kind of stipulations around it. Well, is my team or how much money? So money is not a factor in your team. Whichever teams you root for are not specifically in any of the events that I'm going to bring up. But if you had one opportunity to attend one of these events, which one would you attend? NCAA Final Four, NFL Super Bowl, or the Olympics?
Final Four, easy.
Blasphemy!
Easy.
Blasphemy
The
for
Super Bowl football is a TV sport. So why the heck I want to go sit in some stands and watch football? We can see all the commercials and all that good stuff that goes along with football.
It's a different experience because I've been to 3 Super Bowls, physically in the Super Bowl, and it's a different experience when you're there opposed to when you watch it on TV. And I've enjoyed all 3 of them. It was a good time.
So you would go to the Super Bowl?
No, because I've been to 3. I'll take the Final Four.
Are you two serious? Are the two of you serious right now?
I'm very serious.
I can't even believe.
I'm very serious.
Let me say this, though. It would really depend upon who was playing. That would mean a lot to me. Who was actually playing in the Final Four.
So you have no interest whatsoever in going to the Olympics where every athlete is trying to get to? Where it is like the ultimate
you won't be able to
competition.
see everything. You won't be able to see everything.
No, but you can go to different competitions. You can go to an opening ceremony. There's so many different aspects.
I can sit on my couch and click and see everything.
Here's the thing, too. For instance, I
don't understand not wanting to experience. Well, because in his Facebook feed, everybody was saying things like, "Oh, well, is my team in the Super Bowl?"
I don't care about that.
No. Oh, well, is North Carolina, because he went to North Carolina, is North Carolina in the Final Four?
This Final Four, that was a very easy question.
If my team is in the Super Bowl, okay, maybe I'd have to think about it. But I'm sorry. I'm literally thinking about going to Rio for the Olympics because I feel like there is nothing greater. There is no greater sports platform than the Olympics.
Let's cover the base. When the Olympics is in Rio, I'm going because it's in Rio.
No, but you should want to go because it's the Olympics.
No, I'm going because it's in Rio. Like, for instance, I had no desire.
Then you're not even going to go to events.
No,
you're just going to be in Rio.
No, I'm going to go to events. For instance, I had no desire to go to the Olympics in London because I've been to London like 3 times. So I was like, I'd rather go to a country and have a different experience and go to some of the events that are there. So I would, depending on the country, yes, I would go to the Olympics. But
so Rio Olympics, you go.
Absolutely.
It's so many events I put in between that Final Four and those other 2 events. Like I'd say any game of the World Series. I'd say a ALCS game or NLCS game. I put a lot of different things between those last 2 things.
I feel like I don't know who you people are.
Sports Chick Tip of the Week.
Ladies, it's time for the Sports Chick Tip of the Week.
All right, this sports tip is actually for everyone. And now that I've sat here with my 2 Olympic co-hosts, that's what I'm gonna call you guys from now on. So the tip this week is really for ladies. If you want to get into sports, you can start watching the Olympics. Trust me, if you watch certain sports with your significant other, he will probably have no idea what is going on, just like you. So it can be a bonding experience. You can make it a learning experience for the both of you. You can watch fencing. You can watch water polo. You can watch field hockey, which I highly recommend.
You can watch pole sliding.
That didn't make it yet.
I'm kidding.
That didn't make it yet. It's in conversation.
That sounds like Skinamax Olympics.
But there's so many things in the Olympics that you could be watching, and at the end of the day, it's sports. Even though my co-hosts don't want to go to the Olympics.
We said we're going to the Olympics.
Anyway.
You know what? Speaking of polls, I bet if they took a poll.
Why are we talking about
listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying. I bet if they took like a poll of the sports most watched by women, it will probably be Olympic events.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that one either.
I think so. I think I'll be right.
I know what you're talking about. Keep going.
Yeah. The point is, it could be a bonding experience, a learning experience, ladies, to get into sports, some of which are popular here in the United States, like basketball. It could be a fun way to get invested in basketball. Some of the players that play for the other countries might play for your hometown team. You know, like we have Luol Deng that we face off with. He plays for Great Britain, but he plays professionally for the Bulls. So it's a good way to, you know, one, root for your country, Maya and Farouk. Two, get into the sports. And three, you know, make it an experience for you and your significant other, because 9 times out of 10, he also does not know the rules of fencing, which actually is a great sport to watch. I think more people should watch fencing.
All right. Thanks a lot to Kip Lewis from Comcast Sportsnet Chicago for joining us tonight. Thanks to Russell S. Baxter from ProFootballGuru.com for joining us, giving us some AFC West talk. Thank you to our production staff tonight. So many names. Alexis Wolford, who wasn't here, hopefully she feels better. Thank you to Tamia Baker for getting all our guests lined up. Thank you to Robert Chapman, Malcolm Rockhold, Demons. Thank you to Ken. Thank you to our host. Thank you to myself. Thank you to whoever you decide to pray to at night, every night.
And just in case you missed this show, you can always catch it on Wednesday. It will rebroadcast as a podcast at www.blogtalkradio.com. Stats and Stilettos, 8 o'clock. Check it out.
All right, everybody. See you next week. Peace.
Good night.